If something's not working, like don't continue to smash your head into the brick wall.
Yeah.
Like we're the Army, we're not the Marine Corps. We know that there's left and right, and we can maneuver around.
They're just
We don't need
minding their own business,
Right.
and all of a sudden we make fun of them.
I love our Marine friends because like a Marine would probably have found a way directly through it.
Yeah, totally.
Welcome to Warrior Money, the show devoted to supporting our brother and sister veterans. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze.
Today, we're joined by Blake Hall, an Army veteran and the co-founder and CEO of ID.me. Blake went from leading troops in Iraq to leading a billion-dollar tech company that protects over 100 million Americans from fraud and identity theft. For veterans, this is more than just a tech story. It's about safeguarding our financial futures. Veterans are disproportionately targeted by scams, and ID.me has become one of the frontline defenses. We're going to talk with Blake about his journey from the battlefield to the boardroom. The rise, though, of digital identity and what every veteran needs to know about protecting themselves. Let's get after it. Blake, welcome to Warrior Money.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
Hey, real quick, we're going to talk about the public-private partnership and ID.me, but what piece of advice would you give to veterans to make sure they can secure their data out there in a digital battlefield?
Well, the first thing, especially with kids, all my kids have credit cards so that they're locked down from synthetic identity theft. So that's really important. And the second thing is just make sure you're monitoring your credit records. You can see when unknown phone numbers and addresses pop up, what you'll see is a lot of criminal actors will use stolen data to associate phone numbers and addresses that they control with your information. So it's really important to stay tight on that, because if you see those unknown things pop up, that's a signal that they've got you in their pipeline and they're about to do something bad with your identity.
The DMV, like the DMV public records, the Virginia that I keep getting the text about. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and if you even check it too, like they'll just fill out a bank loan with like Dan's information on it, and all of a sudden the credit bureaus will start to have a phone number or an address that you've never seen before. And if you see that, you should be careful.
Did I hear you say you've got your kids' credit cards?
I do.
Can you just? That's the first time I've heard that. Can you just explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So synthetic identity theft is the fastest growing form of fraud, and the reason it's called synthetic is it's a combination of fake data and real data. And what criminals will do is they'll take a social security number that isn't in circulation yet. So a social security number for a child or a social security number that hasn't been issued. And do you know the credit bureaus, how a social security number enters into circulation at the beginning of your financial life cycle? Do you all know?
No, I've never heard that.
You just fill out a form, and if it's the first time that the credit bureaus have seen the social,
they put it in there.
They just put it in there. And so what'll happen is a lot of these kids, if their social is used for fraud, they turn 18, they go to apply for credit with maybe their parents, and all of a sudden the credit bureau goes, no, this social is already tied to a different name and date of birth. And because they give preference to the first person to claim the social, the onus is now on you and on your parents to explain, no, that's my social security number, and to unwind it. So for that reason, if you can claim your social security number before a bad guy does, it's a digital foot race.
Wow.
My kids are locked down.
I thought I was doing good by getting my kids' email addresses with their names. I didn't realize you had to do credit cards. That's kind of wild. That's crazy.
That's amazing. Hey, and it's funny because when we heard you speak a few years ago, it was talking about, like in Puerto Rico, you talked about they don't have access to some of the credit bureau stuff, and that why ID.me has like about 80% of that market on protecting their own identity.
Yeah, we tripled pass rates for underserved communities. So Puerto Rico is a great example. A lot of those families live together, and their mailing address that might be on file with their banks is a P.O. box for privacy reasons and doesn't actually match what's on their driver's license. And so for that reason, the access rates for Puerto Ricans was like 23% through data brokers to government agencies. When ID.me went in to like IRS and Social Security and a few others, it was 80% a couple years ago and is now flirting with 90% right now.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, let's. We were asked at that summit together, and it was an awesome conversation. There's a couple things about that conversation that stood out to me that I want to bring forward. Right, you had a pretty interesting, if not yet remarkable career in the Army. And then you transitioned from Army service where you were doing, and I'd love you to talk about a little bit about the high-speed stuff you were doing in the Army.
Yeah.
But then transitioned to entrepreneurship. And I'd love to hear the story about how you made that transition happen and what that looked like for you. But I think it's really cool if you start with the military story first.
Sure.
Like, what were you doing in Iraq? Like, how did that work out? And then how did that inform what we were going to do after you left?
Yeah, I think maybe the 1, 2, 3. I grew up in a military family. Grandfather was a war hero in World War II, 66 months of combat.
Wow.
Wow.
Crazy. From
12,
like
24.
Anzio as a Browning automatic rifleman in 1941, where he lied about his age, to
Wow.
Korea, and then 2 tours of Vietnam.
Wow.
Command Sergeant Major of Infantry. My dad was West Point 76. And 9/11 happened while I was at Vanderbilt. So I knew I wanted to be an infantry officer. Did airborne school as a cadet, did Ranger school right after IOBC. Was a rifle platoon leader for 5 months, and then Colonel Barry Huggins is like my second dad. Said, use some choice language I won't use here. He said, hey, you know what? He's like, you're going to be my scout platoon leader, and picked me ahead of a cohort of lieutenants who are all a year ahead of me. So I ended up leading recon for 27 months. It was amazing. 15 months that were in combat. We were going into Mosul in June of 2006 when 3-letter agencies rolled in and said, hey guys, like, forget everything that you've learned about reconnaissance and precision engagement. We're going to outfit you with signals intelligence attachments from the NSA, and you're going to be running kill capture missions day and night, 20-minute string, doesn't matter what it is. And so we hadn't trained for any of that. I mean, we were literally setting up tape houses.
Yeah.
And like, we're all infantrymen at the end of the
Right.
day. We're all 11 alphas and bravos, so let's go. But when we started, we weren't really good at that mission. We probably had a 23% success rate in Mosul. But by month 3, caught the head of the Mujahideen Shura Council, which is the sort of clearinghouse of Islamist and nationalist Sunni groups, and also the spiritual leader of Al-Qaeda for northern Iraq. So Colonel Townsend, who later becomes 4-star general.
Trade actor.
Yeah, he's the man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he commanded everything in like Iraq and Syria.
Steve Townsend, a great American.
He made us the kill capture force of choice for the brigade, for 3rd Stryker Brigade combat team. They get designated as the Surge Strike Force, and so we start going down to Baghdad, Lake Tartar, the outskirts of Fallujah, and then Karbala, running against some of the Quds guys and a guy named Qais Khazali who still needs to die. If anyone will let me go back, I would like to finish that one. But while we were there, we started to develop new tactics and techniques, and the gist of it is over the last few weeks, we had special missions unit operators from Task Force Night, the British SAS, and took down the South Kark vehicle bomb network. In about 10 days, General Odierno did a press conference on that. The intel guys said that was the fastest they've ever seen a major network disassembled ever, and that was a really cool way to for my 32 guys to stand in front of them. Still the proudest moment of my professional career is to look at them and know what we did together as a brotherhood.
Let's talk about that incredible transition, though. I mean, you when you were leaving, you said, hey, I want to go to Harvard Business School. You had an idea, right?
Yeah.
And so I talked to Colonel Adam Rocky, you served with back in the day, and he said that, they didn't ever dissuade you. They were like, hey, if that's your next mission, go crush it. And then he joked that you hired a bunch of lieutenants, that worked for you, the IDB eventually. But talk about that transition at the HBS, and then and I always love, as I teach a war night, about the pivots, right? Yeah. First it was called Troop Swap, then it was Troop ID, and then ID Me. But walk us through that, how how soup to nuts.
Yeah, sure. I love Colonel Rock, by the way, too, because he was the brigade operations officer, and I'd just be on a random mission, like checking in at the brigade operations center or whatever. He'd be like, oh. He's like, when should we put up our rotary wing air support? And I'm like, I don't know, sir. I'm like, most IDs seem to be, dusk and dawn, so probably then, right? He's like, that's what we're going to do. And I'm like, all right, done. So I love Colonel Rock. He's my battalion commander after Colonel Huggins after he got back. He's the best. I knew I didn't feel like we had a strategy in the Middle East. I still feel that way. Like there was no, like, what end are we after here? I think that's why a lot of veterans feel pretty jaded. And so knowing what I was able to do with a group of young men where we had great success, I wanted to do it in a way that mattered over the long term. And I felt like I didn't know what I was going to be up to, but I felt like Harvard Business School would be a great platform. Barry Huggins, when I told him, he's 6'3", is the type of battalion commander that like everyone's down taking cover, and he's like, put suppressive fire. He has some colorful language for me. But he also said, if you don't apply to Harvard, I'm not going to write you a letter.
That's awesome.
He changed my life in so many ways. And while I was there, I saw that there was so much goodwill for the military, and the consistent refrain from brands was, we'd love to help the military, but we can't keep these programs safe if we bring them online. And at the same time, you had veterans like showing their social security number to a stranger to get a fried vegetable, at the Outback.
Yeah, wherever,
And I'm like, no, you shouldn't trade your social for a free appetizer
or your cat
and
card.
blooming onion.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And that there's got to be a better way. And so initially we started it. To your point, Patrick, Troop Swap was kind of an app-based play. But the learning from the market as we had the prototype is they said, hey, the different brands, we're not really interested in your app. You don't have any users. What you've done, though, to confirm identity in real time is so valuable. We would love to integrate that into our own workflows. And that was the genesis of what eventually has led out, to be ID.me today.
How many times did you have to hear that before you realized that was a good idea? Because oftentimes we hear about pivot points, right? And the question is like, how many times you have to, like, you hear the noise and all of a sudden you're like, we've heard this enough times where this is the pivot we have to go make.
It was hearing it from multiple customers, I think, for sure, like definitely more than 3. And it was also the accumulation of other signals. We would look at like, where are we spending all of our time? All the time that we were spending, we couldn't even get to the app because we were focused on onboarding and how do you
get people into it.
Get people in.
Yeah.
And then I had a conversation with an entrepreneur up in New York City. It was in Andy Dunn's apartment. He's the founder of Bonobos, and it was the founders of Warby Parker and Venmo and everything else. And one of them pulled aside, and I won't use profane language, on your show here, but he said, how much money have you raised? And I think it was like $2 million at the time. And he goes, don't F it up. Big stigma. And that was honestly the conversation that I needed on the train down from New York City to DC. I just thought about that. And I was like, I know what the right thing to do here is. And in the same way that my unit in Iraq like sucked for the first 2 months at our mission set and then got, to average, that was the big idea. And there was enough validation and signal that when I communicated that to the team and to the board and our investors, everyone rolled with it and said, all right, let's do it. And
you've also, it was pretty clear you had established trust.
Yeah.
And you were working with strategic investors that you believe that they also believed in you, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that before we go to break?
Sure. It's all about trust. I think that's what the military drills into you at these after action reviews and everything else. If something's not working, like don't continue to smash your head into the brick wall. Yeah. Like we're the Army, we're not the Marine Corps. We know that there's left and right, and we can maneuver around.
They're just we don't need business, and all of a sudden we make fun of them.
I love our Marine friends because like a Marine would probably have found a way directly through it.
Yeah, totally.
But I was like, there's probably got to be a way around this fixed obstacle that's a little bit more convenient. So so we just took the learning and with that, the brand said it's not just military, it's students, it's teachers, it's first responders, and then the government said, why don't we do this for all Americans and legal identity? And that all happening at the same time, we were just in the right place at the right time to create what has now become a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the fact that it's dual use, meaning private sector use, public sector use. So we're going to go more about ID.me, the dual use company, and the journey there. Right when we get back, more on Word Money after the break. Welcome back. As we mentioned earlier, Blake Hall is the co-founder and CEO of ID.me, a company serving more than 100 million users across the VA, IRS, Social Security, and the private sector. He's also a Bronze Star recipient who served as an Army Ranger in Iraq, pursuing an MBA at Harvard. Blake, welcome back to Warrior Money. I love the story because when we talk about veterans and about 200,000 a year basically transition out, it's when we talk about soft skills, about mission accomplishment. You told the story of one time, I think it was Lego gave you certain things, and you basically rented a truck, took a flight, rented a U-Haul, drove it yourself from Dallas, Texas to DC just to get something done. Can you just tell me real quick? Because that is an example. You're a CEO of a company and a graduate of Harvard Business School. We're
going to find a way. No, I love that. I was just talking about this at Harvard Business School, actually, and the professor made me tell this story. And I was like, I don't know what the kids are going to take away from this story. Like, I don't know if this is going to be a waste of your time, but we had to meet our financial target for 2011. We were going to be like 20 or 30K short. Because I'd just been out there and I'd been at like a toy fair and met this guy from Lego. I got a phone call and he said, hey, listen, Lego never does this. But if you can guarantee me that this is going to go to military families, we will give you this inventory at like 20 to 30% of sticker, and you can resell it at like half off for military families. And I was like, okay. And this is late November, by the way. So the window for Christmas shopping is shrinking. He goes, but if you do it, you got to wire the funds today and you got to pick it up today as well. And so I said, done. So I literally
2011
wired.
Awesome.
Yeah, I wired the funds off. I got on a plane to Dallas, Texas. I rented a Penske truck. I backed that sucker up at a warehouse. They loaded all the Legos on, and I drove from Dallas to DC without stopping. And when I got to our office in McLean, the whole team was waiting, and immediately we'd already been pre-selling some of this stuff online. They immediately began to wrap these things, and we hit our revenue target for 2011 by 30 or 40K.
Awesome. That's almost as good as the story of the FedEx guy that went in blackjack game. But that's such a good story.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there was I'm so fascinated by your story, and this show is for transitioning service members and veterans, and kind of how do you go find your first job and how do you make that transition elegant? When we were at MIT, you made a comment about the job of a CEO to make sure that the right people are in the right places at the right times, and you talked about talent in a really elegant way because you're like, hey, sometimes I can't make the first 150 person, the first 2,000 person, but they don't have to know that always. Talk to me a little bit about how you view talent, and especially transitioning talent.
It's so hard. There's so many layers. And honestly, it's deeply humbling as you scale. We grew, I think, 2020 to 2024, over 400% growth. And the company grows way faster than people do. And so every stage of it,
really profound comment.
It's unbelievable. It's like, founders told me, they're like, if you're fortunate enough to double your company, everything's going to break. And it's like, what do you mean? How does the company break? And now I'm like, oh God, it all breaks. The systems break, the processes break. The people are the ones who design the systems and process. So they're in over their head. But fundamentally, Brian Armstrong at Coinbase wrote this essay, said what CEOs do. And there's 4 archetypes of a CEO. There's a go-to-market CEO. This would be like Mark Benioff, who's a very famous kind of marketer. There's an operations CEO. This is Travis Kalanick at Uber. Unbelievable. Uber basically is an ops company. You have technical founders, of course. This is Zuckerberg, and take your pick of all the technical founders. And then finally, you've got product and design CEOs like Brian Chesky at Airbnb. It doesn't matter which one or which bucket you fit into. You can be an effective CEO, obviously, as all those leaders are, as long as you're self-aware that you need help in the 3 other buckets to create a really strong team around you. What's really interesting:
operations and sales,
finance, operation, or product and design, go-to-market, ops, and technical. Technical data model, which ends up being the most critical at skill. And so once that's what the team needs to be composed of. It turns out, if you hire somebody from the same bucket of superpower that you're from, that's usually where founders get into really nasty divorces. Because it's almost like having 2 platoon leaders for the same platoon. It's like, who's really
one of us
in charge? You have the same skill set, so there's no real autonomy, and it ends up being kind of a battle for who has control, instead of complementary skill sets where everyone brings something different to the table. And as long as you're aligned on the big idea, you have enough autonomy to move. So that's the most important thing to get right at the early stages. After that, the thing that a lot of companies just don't do well is just defining what skills do you need in that job and skills testing for it. So we view talent assessment at the root as a combination of capability, which is how quickly can you turn capability into skill, how fast do you learn. Skill, which is what am I hiring you for and how skilled are you at that right now? And I want to know up front so I'm not disappointed on the back end. And then culture fit. And we define our culture by values. And this is all the locker room stuff in my leader's book about working with great people. What makes for a winning team? I didn't know that as even a captain, I would say, like the way I know it today, which is we want people who can control their fight or flight response. If you're not emotionally self-regulated, hard to have a good relationship over time, especially with people who have power if they're insecure and aren't regulated. Super competitive, driven to win. Empathetic, treat each customer like your favorite family member, optimistic. The best leaders lift the room up around them. And so that triangle is how we assess talent always for every position. And the way that you've got a good leader underneath you is that they have taken the time to figure out what skills are necessary to succeed in different aspects of their team. And they're actually screening for that up front. And if you don't see those behaviors, you probably have somebody who's in a little bit over their head or is too careless with selection.
So that's a scaling organization, right? When you're coming from military service and you're trying to find your first job, you're an infantry, you're an enlisted infantry, or you're field artillery. I don't know what it is, right?
Yeah, lots of booms.
And I'm trying to go into a company like IDMe. Or I'm trying to go into any other tech company because I hear that's where I should be at, right?
Sure.
How do you even think about making that transition over once you start to think about it?
Yeah, it's hard. The main thing always for leadership generally is, what is your source of credibility? What are you really good at? What I had as credibility was I had a year and a half of running around Iraq with these NSA guys and learned a ton about graph databases, telecom networks, weakest tower theory.
And who.
So, your signals guys will have that. Some of your folks who work at Fusion Cell and maybe out of JSOC would have that. And so there's what you are naturally good at and have capability in, quantitative, qualitative, communications, relationships. And then there's where do you have experience, and how did the intersection of those two things make you useful to a team? In every single environment you go into, the hardest thing is to be useful.
Yeah.
And so understanding where you are strong and where you're not so strong, and finding teams where you can be useful, but also that will stretch, grow, and develop you in a way where you're not going to let them down. It's hard because there is no playbook for that, but that's really what you're searching for.
And I think part of what, when you talk about, I heard you talk about your love of Aristotle, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Habits,
yeah.
Right? And so basically your habits become your character, and your character, that's how you can grow. Those habits can be developed and are developed in the military. It's just harnessing them for the next mission.
That's right. That's right. In Aristotle, it was all about incentives and why do humans behave the way that they do, that we're all creatures of habits. And even Charlie Munger, Buffett's right-hand man, I think he has this famous saying, show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome.
Yeah.
It's all about incentives and making sure that humans go tribal. If you took a random room and you said, you're blue, you're red, they will immediately start talking trash to each other.
Yeah.
Welcome to politics in America. This is not a political show.
I picked the wrong color.
Right.
Yellow and green.
For the record, most veterans are independents. For the record, so
we're gonna wrap up here for a second, but it would be remiss not to talk about the success that IDME's had.
Thanks, buddy.
So talk to me about where you are now, what you're most excited about, where you think you're talk to me about where it is now, because it's a pretty awesome story and it'd be great to hear.
It's so exciting. So I think AI is all the rage right now, and we think about the AI market in 3 layers. The foundational layer for AI is the identity layer. It's memory, context, and authentication and authorization. So how do I know Dan is Dan? How do I know Patrick is Patrick? And all the memory and context tokens, those are all different facets of your identity. So it could be your legal identity with the government. It could be your shopping profile. It could be your work profile. It could be your automotive profile if you need to buy something at AutoZone or whatever. You can mint those tokens with consent and have AI models and agents that have permission to use your data in a very specific way where they can proactively accomplish a task for you. So the identity layer is the foundation, like picks and shovels for the AI ecosystem. The middle layer is where you have foundational models, and this is like Anthropic and Gemini and XAI and ChatGPT. And so incredibly powerful inference and judgment, but just like a human, if it doesn't know what it doesn't know, it's probably going to give you a bad answer. And that's why a lot of folks talked about prompt engineering, but I forget, it might have been Aaron Levy or someone else said it should be context engineering. That's exactly what it is. Once smart people have the right data points that are synthesized for them, that powerful brain and judgment can go to work. But if you're missing the data, you're going to have suboptimal outcomes. And then finally, you have the agentic agents on top of that actually are going to go forth into the world and accomplish tasks for you in a given workflow. They need to have deep proprietary knowledge. And so our place in the world is building this identity trust graph around organizations and people. And since we don't sell data, it's your data. We sell trust. We sell trust that that's what we provide is that trust and context in, so that if somebody gets married and wants to change their name, instead of having to go to 5 different agencies, you could actually have an AI agent go do it for you. Why would they trust it? Well, because you have an audit trail that ties back to IDME's NIST, which is the Department of Commerce agency, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. All right, give me 30 seconds real quick. Your announcement recently, you're doing a Series E.
Yeah.
What would a veteran who doesn't know anything about Series A, B, C, D, how big of a deal? Because it's a huge deal. Walk us through if you can.
Yeah, what does it mean?
It's so raising money. People want to congratulate you on it. I mean, what it means is that It's like
raises the bar.
signing up to run an Ironman or, just do
It just raises the bar.
the hardest thing. So between like the debt and the equity coming in, it's like $340 million, I believe, which is amazing because it shows that some of the smartest investors in the world not only see the opportunity that we see, but they believe in us that we're going to go out and capture it. Now, it's tremendous stress and responsibility. I've gone from the beginning of just not wanting to let the people who trusted me early on, these military academy graduates, my older brother, down, to now we're the only thing between the United States Department of the Treasury and China is us. So I don't want to let America down. I don't want to let these investors down. I don't want to let my employees down. So the responsibility is really tremendous. It's wonderful to have the resources and the belief of world-class investors so that we can go out and keep people and customers safe. That's our why. And if we can keep people and customers safe, they're going to have more convenient lives, and we're going to take friction out of it. So that's the plan.
Well, Blake, you not let any of us down. We are so proud of you.
Thanks,
You are
buddy.
literally the leading voice of our generation when it comes to entrepreneurship and founder. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you, Patrick.
All right, so listen, that wraps up our show. So listen, subscribe, review Warrior Money on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, or find us at Yahoo Finance. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze. We'll see you again next week.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.